Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever location you are watching this video. A very warm welcome to Questpoint's YouTube channel. And in this video, I'll be discussing about how to use the Questpoint's 5-year membership effectively to crack interviews. Because what happens is when you come to Questpoint, there are so many videos out there, red color and all that, right? Blue color and so on. So I thought that I should create a video on how to use it effectively. So it's a 10-point agenda. I have a 10-point agenda in this. First is that I will talk about the interview mode checkbox, which I have created just now for Questpoint. Second, when you are actually starting your interview preparation, you need a resume sample, right? So that where you can get it from. The most asked questions before you start preparation, you would like to get an idea of the market. You would like to get idea of the most asked questions, what is asked in the big companies out there, right? What are the most repeated questions? So that we'll talk about it. Second, I'll talk about the 5 A's preparation strategy. So 5 A's means ABC, Azure, architecture, and other things out there. So the 5 A's what to prepare, right? We'll talk about it. And I will talk about one more approach called as the interview preparation and the step-by-step approach. So whenever you're preparing for interviews, one is that you have to prepare for interviews as well as you have to do things step by step. So how to do that? I will also talk about the mental model of 30-70 Pareto style preparation. Then we'll look into how to prepare for microservices, how to prepare for Azure. Remember, nowadays you are asked coding questions, performance tuning questions, and at the last, how you can take mock interview with me, or you can take mock interview through an AI tool, right? So we'll discuss all of this. Remember, one of the goals of Questpoint was and will be is that how you can get a job, right? So let us get started with the problem of Questpoint, and let us get started. First thing, the interview mode checkbox. One of the biggest challenges with Questpoint is that it has more than 10,000 videos. And for someone who is actively looking for a job or planning for a switch, it is not practically possible to go through such large content, right? So what we have done is that we have enabled a very simple option at the right hand side called as the interview mode. And when you enable this interview mode, right, the number of videos gets reduced significantly. So from 10,000 it comes approximately to must be 500, 600 videos, right? And these videos are very specifically curated to help you to prepare for interview, and it focuses on topics which are commonly asked. So in short, this small interview mode button, what you see at the right hand side, helps you to avoid information overload and concentrate only on content that can improve your chances to clear the interview. So let us go ahead and see this interview mode button and how it works. So you can see this interview mode button is at the right hand side. So when I click on this, you can see the number of videos are getting significantly reduced. Actually, let me know, what I'm planning is that to not only have this interview mode button out here, but I would like to also have a drop down here saying that if you're a developer who is 1 to 2 years or 1 to 5 years, what you need to plan. If you're a developer who is like 2 to 8 years, what to plan, and senior, what to plan, right? But I thought that I should not get into that confusion. This itself would be very useful, right? So when I click on this, you can see now the number of videos have reduced very significantly. So the first thing what I would suggest everyone is to go and look at this resume and interview questions, because when you are going and looking out for a job out there, the first thing is that you would like to know that what kind of questions are asked, and you would like to go ahead and prepare your resume, right? So there is a sample resume for senior architect out here now. So if you go ahead, you can see that this is the architect resume out here. I would suggest everyone that please go ahead and change this resume as per your need, as per your situations, right? But what I've tried is that I've tried in this resume template to keep as far as minimum information as possible, and also I've looked into that it should have a good CTS score out there, right? The second thing out here which is very interesting is the real-time interview questions, right? This is again which you would like to do, which you would like to have, right? So if you see out here, you can just go through it. What kind of questions are asked in bigger companies out there, you can see that, right? And have a look at it, which will give you an idea that what you should be learning, right? So my first thing would be that when you actually go and click on this interview mode button, just make sure that your resume is uploaded, right? Your resume is having the latest information what you have. And the second one is that just go through the real-time interview questions. Remember, these questions we have gathered from our WhatsApp group, And so somebody who goes for an interview, he says that, okay, these were the questions are, this happened, right? So we have all documented it out here. So just go ahead and go through it. So that will help you to understand that what is the market situation. Now, before we go ahead and understand, what videos to look into, right? Let us first try to understand currently what is happening in the job market. In this job market at this moment, you need to prepare the 5 A's. Now I'm talking about a senior person, guys. I'm talking about a very senior person who is, let's say, about 10 years and 15 years of experience. All of these 5 A's you need to prepare, and I'll talk about how to prepare as well, right? If you're a junior, if you're a team lead, then must be one of the A's can go off, right? So the first A is the ABC. The ABC means the C#, ASP.NET, SQL Server, Entity Framework, Object-Oriented Programming, Solid Principles, and one JavaScript framework, React or Angular or Vue.js. Now, I'm not taking Vue.js into account because React and Angular are very big markets. Try to stay in markets which are bigger rather than going into smaller markets, right? So this is the first A. The second A is the architecture. As a senior, you should be able to talk about some design patterns like repository, singleton pattern, or must be CQRS. Microservices and DDD is also very important, right? So this is the second A which should be there, right? The third A is Azure. You can't skip Azure. So the basic of Azure, like Azure App Services, Function App, Logic App, Storages, SQL on Azure, security with OpenID, OAuth, right? These some things are important. Also, some of the other things are like Docker, Kubernetes, and DevOps. Again, if you have in your resume, it also adds value. So this is the third A. The fourth A is a little bit strange, but nowadays it is becoming a part of the interview, is coding questions, algorithms, right? So you are given a coding question out there and you are supposed to solve it, right? And the last one, the fifth A, which is like a ice on the cake or cake on the ice, whatever you want to say, right, is the AI/ML. So projecting with, when I say AI/ML, like projecting yourself as a C# AI/ML Python programmer, RAG, Azure AI, Tensor, Vector, LLMs, integration, and so on. If you have these 5 A's with you, then definitely cracking of the interview will become much easier, right? So I'm flashing on the screen all of the 5 A's. Also on the screen, I'm flashing the percentage also. Means, for example, see the first A, the first ABC, right, is it is what you are. Like you are a C# ASP.NET developer, right? So that is your identity, right? So the first ABC is the most important one because that is your identity. So 60% questions are going to come from there. The calls will start because your first ABC identity is at place. The second one, architecture, is where again 20% calls will increase because people want nowadays people who understand design patterns and architecture and microservices. The third, Azure, will increase 10 to 15% more calls, right? And algorithm is where the 5% is there because you have to practice algorithm. The AI/ML, I will not give any percentage. Why? Because the job market is just picking up. About AI/ML, let me tell you one thing. AI/ML is at the place today where 20 years back was object-oriented programming. If you remember, in object-oriented programming, if you just answered abstract class and interface, you have the job. So today AI/ML is at this at this juncture where if you just talk about RAG, TensorFlow, Vector, right, LLM integration, and if you talk about Azure AI, it's very much possible you have that sweet spot where you do not have too much competition. But whatever it is, guys, if you really want to methodologically, if you want to really go and practice, right, then these 5 A's are very essential. Now let us go back to Questpoint Teachable and see that how to go ahead and practice for these 5 A's. So now let us go ahead and see that how we can utilize the Questpoint Teachable out here. So the first thing is, if you see, you can see a lot of videos out here, and whatever specific videos you want to search, you can search from here. For example, if you want to search generics out here, you can just go and say generics and you will see all the videos what is needed, right? But for now, my goal is to see that how we can use this for quick preparation for interview, right? So you can see that we have created this small interview mode button out here. If you click on it, suddenly now the number of videos have been reduced, right? Okay. So now point number 1, right? And I'm assuming that you have once prepared your resume, you have also looked into the real-time question so that you have an idea what is asked, right? Okay, so let us start with point number one. You know a topic. You know a topic means you know ASP.NET. If you know ASP.NET, then just start with the interview questions. If you know SQL Server, then just start with SQL Server interview questions. If you know C#, so if you know a topic, that means that you don't really have to practice that step by step. You don't have to do anything, right? Just go ahead and do the revision part of it, right? JavaScript, again, you are either doing React, you are either doing Angular. Some of the JavaScript questions are asked, so make sure that you also know JavaScript out here, right? Okay, now if you don't know a topic, for example, microservices. So microservices you must have not worked or something, right? You can go and then start looking at the microservices step-by-step tutorial. Remember that you can see there are two colors out here, red and blue. The red is the live training and the blue is the recorded videos, right? So if we don't have that step-by-step out here, we are plugged in the live training out here. So if you don't know microservices, start here, right? You can see Azure. If you are not knowing Azure, you can start from Azure Basic to Advanced, right? Or you can start from Azure Crash Course. Now, if you don't have time, you can start from Azure Crash Course, some 6 to 7 hours here, right? But if you say no, like I have ample time out there, then you can start with Azure. But remember that this Azure live lecture has approximately 50 lectures out here. So just see that do you really want to go in depth? See, what happens is when you are saying that you are preparing for interviews, it means that your goal is clearing the interview. Your goal is not to become an expert on that. This is very essential point to understand. So for example, in Azure, if you see, people will ask you fundamentals, they will ask you private public cloud. Yes, they will ask you about Insight, function app, logic app services, this, that, security, and so on. But it is very much possible that they won't ask you about machine learning. Possible. They won't ask you probably about Azure OpenAI GPT, right? Or they won't probably ask you about Azure Docker. So what happens is, if you go very much in depth, it is very much possible that you are putting a lot of effort out there, but at the end of the day, you are just losing stamina. So interview preparation has to be focused. That's why, this interview question PDF is, because all these topics are aligned as per that PDF, right? So fine. So if you know a topic, you will say interview questions. If you don't know, you can start with Azure Crash Course. If you don't have time, you can start with AI, ML. Look at coding questions. Remember algorithm. You can see the algorithm coding questions also out there. Microservices is also there. So what you can do is, when you say that you want to start out here on the interview mode, right? As we said, ABC. ABC means ASP.NET, SQL Server, C#, right? One framework, Angular or React. Second is, I said architecture. So for architecture, microservices architecture, please go through these videos, right? Also for architecture, I would suggest you to also refer the interview questions also, right? Please go through the interview questions also of Azure, of architecture. And remember, over here, we also have design pattern step by step in 8 hours. So if you can just go through at least the first 10 hours, it is good. Now, one of the things which can also come to your mind is, oh, still it is so many videos, sir, right? How do you want us to do it, right? So remember, what you can do is that you can use the 30-70% Pareto principle. Means what? You can do 30% practical. For example, you don't know microservices. So what you can do is that you can go ahead, create an aggregate route, create a simple CQRS, look at how the code is. But do you want to really go and connect with RabbitMQ? No. So you can just watch the video and articulate it, right? Do you want to really go and example use console? Must be probably you would like to just see the video and grasp the concept. So I would say 70% you run through the videos and 30% you do practicals. See, practicals are also very essential, because if you don't do hands-on and if you are asked cross questions, then you can't answer them. So now let us focus on the first A. So first A is ABC, right? So you can see here C# interview questions, ASP.NET interview questions, JavaScript is also needed, JavaScript interview questions, SQL Server interview questions. Choose one framework at least, either Angular or either React, okay? You can see, so like C#, ASP.NET, SQL Server, Angular or React, So this is the first thing you need to do. The second thing in that is architecture. Now in architecture, there are two things, right? One is nowadays people are asking for microservices, DDD and so on, right? So what I have done is, just in case if you're not aware of architecture, as we said, if you're not aware of architecture, start with the step by step. So you can see here, there is Microsoft architecture training out here, value objects, aggregate root, command handler, right? And remember, follow the 30-70 principle. So like what you can do is that you can code till CQRS, you can look at query handlers, but must be event sourcing you shouldn't do, right? Now remember that in case of architecture, right, microservice architecture, many developers say they know microservices. Why? Because they think that breaking two applications is microservices. No, right? You need to talk about tactical DDD, you need to talk about entity objects, value objects, services, right? Aggregate root and so on. So please don't underestimate microservices and go through these videos out here. Again, like, try to see some of the videos demo to just get the articulation part of it, and some videos code it so that you know exactly what the topic is, right? So this is the new thing, microservices, you need to look into. Second is the old gang of 4, right? Still people ask questions on that, right? So you can go through the learn design pattern in 8 hours. Now I won't really suggest you to go and watch all of these videos, right? Because the design pattern questions, how they come is that they don't say that, okay, go and tell me about strategy pattern, go and tell me about interpreter pattern. They will say that, tell me which design pattern have you used in your project, right? So must be you can watch these videos, don't practice, remember, don't lose your stamina, and focus on 2-3 design patterns. So for example, look at this architecture interview questions. Here I have talked about repository pattern, very much used, factory pattern, very much used, right? So there are two things. What you can do is, one, you can either go through this learn design pattern in 8-hour series, right? If you want to get knowledge. If not, you're practicing for interview, right? Just go through the architecture thing out here, right? So 3 videos for architecture, 3 sections of videos for architecture. Again, I'm saying pick and choose depending on what you need. You don't need to really go and become a master. You are on the interview mode now. Interview mode means articulation is more important. Putting it in the resume, placing yourself is more important. Getting calls is more important, right? Microservices, architecture training, architecture interview questions, and design pattern. Now let us talk about Azure. Now again, there are 2-3 courses of Azure here, and each one of these courses has its own context, okay? First one is, if you say no, like I want to go and become an Azure expert, means you are not looking at interview questions. You are saying that no, like I want to really go in depth, really do everything right. Then this is Azure basic to advanced, but you can see that almost we have here 50 lectures, 53 hours. 53 hours is too much for anyone to learn. I can tell that very easily, right? So what you can do is that you can go through the Azure crash course for developers. This is like 6, 7, 8 hours, and very specifically I have created for interview preparation. See, for Azure, what people ask, they will ask you about virtual machines, they will ask you about EAS, PIAS, CIAS, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, right? Instrumentation, function app services, OpenID, OAuth Connect, logic apps, storages, Azure SQL, right? And so on. So all of these basic topics are over here. If you do this much right, you can at least put Azure in your resume. Now also over here we have this Azure step by step. I know that it looks little bit redundant. See, the blue colors are all recorded inside the studio. So even if you start from here, it is okay, but the problem is that after lesson 3 here I have to still record. So lesson 4 I want to record SQL Server and so on, and the below lessons are a little bit old out here. So if you really want to go ahead and without no noise, right? In live training, what happens, people ask me questions. Now those questions are positive also for some people, and for some people it is negative also, right? For example, some of the developers will say, no, we don't want to go through any kind of questions. We only want to get your training. If that is the thing, you can go through this lesson 1, 2, 3, but still I'm still in completion, or else you can go and you can watch that. So very clear. Either you watch the Azure crash course or either you watch Azure basic to advanced. Anything is okay, right? So that is for Azure. And one more A is algorithms, coding questions. It is very sad in today's AI/ML world, where we get a lot of answers, from ChatGPT or Claude, right? People still say that you have to code, right? So you can see that for that I have created this C# coding training out here. We had recorded. Now, see the coding questions, the problem is that it can have multiple flavors. So it is humanly not possible to go and, at least as a senior, I cannot go and tell you, okay, go ahead and do the whole lead code, right? That don't really work, right? So what I would suggest is that I have uploaded approximately 8 to 10 questions out here, approximately 8 questions. If you go through these 8 questions, right, at least you will be 30-40% ready for any kind of situations, right? Must be more than that, right? Now, if you get any questions which is outside from here, then the logics of this 8 or 9 questions will help you. So again, very important, like reverse a string, palindrome, anagram, right? Please go and see these coding questions. And very important for coding questions, I would suggest don't use Visual Studio for practice. Either you can go and use some online compiler or online editor of .NET or C# and do it over there, because most of the people will tell you to write code on a notepad, right? So again, that is coding questions, right? So remember, ABC, C#, ASP.NET, SQL Server, React or Angular. Second A, architecture, right? Design patterns. The third A is Azure, right? The fourth A is your coding questions, your algorithms out here, right? And the last A, which is the ice on the cake, is AI/ML. The last A is AI/ML for C# developers. I want to make one important comment out here. If whatever I have understood, remember we have a WhatsApp group out there. I would suggest that you should go and join the WhatsApp group. In that, a lot of discussions happen, with developers, how they are interviewing, what is happening, right? So you can join our WhatsApp group by using the whatsapp.questpoint.com. And we have approximately 10 groups at least out there. In all of these groups, what I have seen is that I have seen that maximum calls you will get from C#, ASP.NET, SQL Server, React/Angular. You should have Azure, you should have architecture, and you should know coding questions. These 4 are very important. But there is one exception out here, and which is AI/ML. If you have that in your resume, right, you get that slight brownie point, or you get that slight attention saying that, okay, he knows AI/ML. So must be you can put this as one of the things, like more of a marketing. But definitely we have a very superb AI/ML course, which is at this moment live out here, right? It was a live course which we had taken on November, right? And this course, the speciality of this course is that we are using here C# ASP.NET to teach you AI/ML, and then mapping it with Python, and then using Azure AI. Now the speciality of this course is that this course, when it shows AI/ML in your CV, when the way you can show AI/ML in your CV is in a very integrated manner. For example, a lot of time I see the way people put AI/ML, they say Python, then some machine learning LLMs out there and so on, right? It looks very isolated. It looks disconnected. It looks like a separate lump. It does not look integrated. So this course, the good thing is that one is that you can really do AI/ML with C#. You would be very stunned when you look at it. It would really excite you. I'm telling you, you should go through this course. Second, I have used Azure AI. So Azure AI integrates very superbly with ASP.NET, right? So here Azure AI, ML.NET, your semantic kernel, right? And also Python. So with Python, what happens is you will say, okay, like this is how the AI/ML looks here in C#, and this is how you will look at in Python as well, right? So go through this course. Again, guys, if you don't have time, see 30 hours of course, almost 40 hours of course going also. You need to see that how much stamina you have. So remember that this last part, I will put it optional. But as I've said, the problem with today's market is that you need to learn all of this. If you want to really create an edge, if you really want to see that you get maximum call, you need to have this diverse way of creating your resume, right? So it's a sad situation. I know, too many things to learn, and that's why I'm saying that follow the 30-70 approach, the Pareto principle. 30% you practice, 70% you articulate. Now, one more type of questions which come during interviews is performance tuning. How will you increase the performance of your application? How will you do this? What will you do here, right? So for that, I've taken one course out here called as the .NET SQL Performance Tuning. Because what happens is, if you ask someone, okay, how did you increase the performance of your .NET application? Oh, I use string buffer. One line something. I use indexes, right? But really, when you're talking about performance tuning, then you need to also talk about how did you look into memory. Without instrumentation and telemetry, it is very difficult to know which part of your application is slow. In SQL Server also, talking about indexes only will not work. You also have to talk about wait stat and so on, right? So there is a 8 hours of course. Go through that. This will help you to increase your knowledge as well. But as well, when you are answering that question, right, how did you increase performance? It will help you to articulate your answer very nicely, right? Also now you can see there is Azure DevOps also out here. I don't know really if you want to go through it, but it adds that extra edge, right? But if you want, you can also look into that, right? So this is how you can approach this tutorial out here. Remember, I understand it is so much of learning you have to do, so much of videos you have to do, right? Follow 30-70% approach, skip some of the videos, you know the things, right? One very special note about interview questions. Many people, what they do is that they just look at PDF answers. So, okay, what is garbage collector? Just look at garbage collector is a background process which runs undeterministically and clear. You know, I would not, I mean, like, you can definitely, for the revision purpose, you can use the Q&A way of PDF, right? But if you really want to handle the cross questions, if you really want to see that you defend your answers, and if you really want to build that conviction, you have to see the demo. So see the demo means, for example, in C# interview question, just example I'm saying, for instance, if you say aggregation, composition and association, example I'm saying, right? Or let us say questions around solid principles. Until you don't see an example which is convincing enough, it will not help. So remember that the interview questions which I've recorded out here, I don't mean to only teach you interviews and make it look cheap, right? Frankly, but I also want you to get knowledge. So every question, whenever I do, right, I try to show some demo. And when you see that demo, it will build conviction on you, conviction on that answer, and you can answer more properly when the debate happens during the interview. So please go through the questions, right? Go through the videos, put those videos into your streaming, right? I do that sometimes. If I have to learn something, I just stream it on my TV, I watch it, right? As I've told you, don't have to do all the practicals. So that brings us to the end of this video. But before I end the video, right, one very important tip, one very important suggestion. Afterwards, when you do all this practice, right, please give me a mock interview. If you cannot give me a mock interview, must be you can take our mock interview test. Over there, what we have done is that we have uploaded the top 10 questions, top 20 questions which are asked in the companies. So you have to just go and record it, and I will then review it, okay? The whole goal is that when you do a mock interview, right, when you get cross questions, I would always say that first give a mock interview to me live. The AI mock interview is there, right? But I'm a human, right? I'm a human, isn't it? So when you answer me a question, when I look at a resume, I'll ask you specific questions, right? So when you give a mock interview, I will help you to say that your resume is doing better or not. I will also help you to say that your answers are right or not, right? And you will also get an example saying that he asked me about performance tuning, I was not able to answer. Then he asked me about LISCO and I wondered, right? Then I will tell you, see, I talked about LISCO and you were wondering, and I will correct your answer as well. I will help you as well, right? Definitely for the mock interviews, what happens is there is a long queue out there. We have one slot on morning and one slot on evening. But yes, you do get your slot after 1 or 2 days. So send us a mail at questpoint@questpoint.com. Make sure that your resume is compliant. Remember, I've shown you the resume section. Go and use that resume section, right? And make sure that you have the proper things. Please come prepared. Don't just send me a resume and if you want to come and talk to me and get some suggestions, then write in the email saying that we want suggestions. That is okay. Then I can look at your resume. I can give you guidance, right? But if you say no, like I want to take a mock interview, then please come prepared, because many times what happens is I ask him the question saying, okay, what is the difference between scope and transient? He does not know. Then I answer the question, right? Then I ask him that, okay, what do you do over here for microservices? He says, I don't know. Okay, then it becomes more like a training, which I don't intend to do at least, right? Because in 1 hour, you can't do everything, right? So come prepared, and more than happy, right, to take the mock interviews. More than happy to also give you suggestions, whatever is in my capability, in my 30 years of my career, whatever I've understood, whatever I'm understanding through the WhatsApp group, what is happening, whatever I'm understanding through Naukri.com, what is happening, I'm more than happy to share with you and guide you, right? So I hope that you like this video. Happy learning, happy job hunting. Thank you.